Welcome to the Building One Story at a Time podcast.
We're your hosts. I'm Katie Herbine.
And I'm Stephanie LaChance.
Today, we are joined by Mike Hockenberry, the Director of Residential Construction.
And Customer Service.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, let's start out. Just give us a little bit of a background on who you are, maybe your history in the building industry, and then a little bit about your role.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been at E.G. Stoltzfus for over 13 years. As Katie mentioned, I'm the Director of Residential Construction and Customer Service. So really that entails overseeing all of the on-site construction activities, which would include the work that our site managers do. We also have on-staff electricians and carpenters, and then the customer service side after settlement. So I was a site manager for E.G. Stoltzfus for about 8 years. When I started, I ran jobs all over South Central PA. Before that, I started my career in construction as a carpenter. So I have a background in trim carpentry. So yeah, I mean, all of that carried over into being the Director of Construction here at E.G. Stoltzfus.
Awesome. Well, you can give us a little bit of an insight, like what it's like on the construction end, like maybe what the buyer can expect as they're going through the construction process. Is there anything just like kind of on a global level that you want to share about the construction process and what to expect when building an E.G. Stoltzfus home?
Yeah, so that's the part the customer really starts to see the house take shape. We dig a hole, we put the foundation in, we start to frame. That's, I think, when the customer can really start to feel connected to their home. One thing we do really well at E.G. Stoltzfus is, I think one of the benefits of E.G. Stoltzfus is really our trade partners and the relationship we have with our trade partners. So a lot of them we've worked with for, some of them 50 years, really since the creation of E.G. Stoltzfus. We've had the same trade partners, almost all local contractors. We have relationships with every single one of them. So for us, we rely heavily on our trade partners to really do the work. So I think as we've gotten to this point as a company, 55 years in, that's really a key piece of our reputation that we've been able to build is our trade partner relationships. So as a buyer with E.G. Stoltzfus, you're going to see that reflected in the quality of your home. So as we start to build your home, you're going to see as many as 30 different companies, 100 different individuals on site building your home. And we really take pride in all of us combining to really give you the home that you really want and deserve.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about how many people actually are involved, even from like the manufacturer. There's the guy that drove the truck that brought your tile to the house, and then the guy that makes them grout, and then the guy that installed it, and the guy that came back to do the finishing work. Like, so many moving parts.
I was thinking that too, like over 100 different people on the job, like obviously not at the same time, but like over the course of the 3 months that our house is actually under construction, not even to mention everybody that's behind the scenes doing permits, drawing those prints.
Yeah, when you think about going from a grass field to a finished house in 3 months and all those details that go into a house, you have to know what you're doing to really do it well. Yeah. And I think from our 55 years of experience, I think we do a pretty good job of that.
Absolutely. And I think like our trade partners that we've had such long relationships for is a benefit to us because we know the quality of work that they're going to do. We're not constantly like searching for new trades to do something because we had a bad relationship with one or something like that. It's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for Katie and I, Mike is the guy that we go to when we need to know if something can work or not. He's like, basically, he knows, he has the all-knowing power.
Yeah, so that's for me getting out on the job site a lot, right? I mean, that's honestly like the fun part of my job is going out and actually seeing construction, interacting with the trades. I mean, you guys obviously do a great job setting up all the design studio options, and we pass that off to the pre-construction team and our architectural services department. And And then once all that stuff kind of gets out to construction and we can actually make it happen, like for me, that's the fun and exciting part.
Definitely. It is always fun when we can get out to the job site and start to like see things coming together, and especially seeing design studio options like actually installed,
Yes.
the cabinets going in.
It makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, today we want to have a little chat about what to expect at the mechanical or electrical orientation. So, Mike, why don't you kind of explain when this orientation happens along the new home build experience, and then kind of maybe how best to prepare for this, and then what to expect?
Sure. So rough timing would be about a month after your home starts and digs. We would be nearing completion of framing and starting the mechanical rough-ins. So that's the time where we would invite you as the buyer out to take a site visit with one of our site managers. The electric work is going to be started, the HVAC work, likely the plumbing, and it's really an opportunity to kind of see all of that stuff going in to the house. When the walls are just framed, there's not going to be any drywall. You're going to be able to see the inside of all your walls. And it's really, again, the first opportunity for the buyer to see and feel what their house is going to look like and feel like when it's done.
Mm-hmm. Also a great time to take pictures of what's behind the walls too. If you plan on hanging like any artwork, or you want to do any type of work later, like knowing what's in certain stud bays if you have plans for later on. Ooh, another tip about your electrical orientation, from my memory of being an on-site sales agent, was to prepare for the weather, because it can be rainy, it can be muddy, it can be hot, it can be freezing. I remember one orientation we did at Landis Farm years ago where we were on the concrete floor in the basement, and I needed warmers in my boots because I went home later that day and my feet could not warm up from just being on that concrete slab for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
In the dead of winter.
Yeah, we love to pick the most beautiful 70-degree day to do it, but it really is a limited window of time. So, yeah. That's right, Stephanie. You used to do a lot of mechanical orientations as a new home sales specialist. So Stephanie is very skilled and versed in a mechanical orientation. So this is actually the first opportunity that you'll likely get to meet the site manager as well. The site manager is really the one out there on the job every day, managing the schedule, working with the trade partners. So it really is the one that's making it happen. So that's a great opportunity to meet them, ask any questions about the construction process. We get a lot of questions, and a lot of them are great questions, and it's really a good opportunity just to be able to see it and hear it directly from the site manager who is out there every day.
Yeah, and can you explain maybe a little bit too about what that site manager's role is, like kind of how active they are in the construction process?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the time that the permit comes back, the site manager really takes full responsibility of that job. So they schedule the trades, they make sure the job's on schedule, they make sure that the house is being constructed per the construction documents, per the drawings, per the design studio selections, and meeting all the inspectors and making sure that everything is done and meeting our E.G. Stoltzfus standards. So really important. They play a really important role in the construction of the home.
It's my understanding that they're actually going out at certain milestones and doing their own inspections as well, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have checklists during certain phases of construction that we go out and we check on every home to make sure that we're doing it consistently. And, we pride ourselves in turning over a good, consistent quality product. And that's one way that we ensure that happens.
Can you give us a little synopsis on each of your site managers and maybe their time with E.G. Stoltzfus? Because I know a couple of them have been around a while. They've got quite a lot of building and construction experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let's start with Rick Hufford, who is the construction manager. You may have met him if you have done a lot orientation. So Rick does all of our lot orientations with our customers. He also does most of our homeowner orientations. And he has been with E.G. Stoltzfus for 46 years, I believe.
Wow.
46 years. Bob Herr, another one of our site managers. He runs developments in Lancaster County. He's been with E.G. Stoltzfus for 34 years, I believe.
Wow.
Started with E.G. Stoltzfus actually in the plumbing department. We used to have a plumbing department way back 35 years ago, apparently. And and then moved his way into site manager and has been managing homes between York and Cumberland and Lancaster County for the last, I believe, close to 30 plus years.
Wow. Bob likes whiskey. Pro tip.
Bob does. He likes whiskey and the Steelers. Big Steelers.
If you want to warm up to your site manager.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kevin Trimble, been with us for 40 years. He runs jobs in Lancaster County as well. Lidditz Reserve, Warwick Crossing, Lime Spring Village. Super detailed. Kevin is really super detailed, runs a really clean and organized job site, and very, very good at what he does. Very good with the trade partners.
Yeah, not a lot gets past Kevin.
It does not. And then we have Ethan Truitt, who runs our jobs in Mechanicsburg and York. He's been with us for 7 years. And again, really, really good with customers, really enjoys that interaction. You'll see him at the mechanical orientations. A lot of time he attends the final orientation as well. Really committed to turning over that quality home and having that relationship with our buyers.
Awesome. So during this mechanical orientation, there are certain items that can be added. So ideally, we have gone through electrical very thoroughly at the design studio. It's a big kind of a step in our process. But you do have a chance to add additional electrical later on at your mechanical orientation in case you think of something later you just did not think of before. It happens. So can you kind of talk us through what some of those options are? And maybe from your experience, what are you seeing most people realize that they need to add at the mechanical?
I'd say the most common items that are added at a mechanical orientation are extra outlets or maybe a TV or Cat 6 jack. Like you said, Stephanie, you do a great job of kind of preparing the buyer for what they might need to add at the design studio selections. When we go in and we lay out for our electrical, we're mandated by code to install a certain amount of outlets. And it typically is a lot. Typically, most buyers will go in and they don't see the need to add more outlets in a room unless it's a specific area, maybe a pantry or a walk-in closet, something they just didn't think about. Maybe I want to put my rechargeable vacuum here and plug it in. So we see those added probably most frequently. In a bedroom or a family room or a larger room where we're going to have a lot of outlets laid out, we typically don't see buyers adding those.
Awesome. That's good to hear that we're doing a pretty thorough job, though, up front.
Yeah. I did want to ask, do people typically add floor receptacles after they've walked through the house? Maybe they can envision a little bit better how their furniture is going to be laid out, or they bought a new piece of furniture for this house and they're like, actually, you think I need this here.
That happens occasionally. Yeah, there's times where we're out there with our tape measures, trying to measure off a wall, and this is where my couch would be, and here's my end table, and we're able to mark that exact location on the subfloor, and then we can just cut that out, and the electrician's typically still there at the mechanical orientation. So that's kind of the beauty of being able to add stuff is we can just, mark that right there where they want it, and then the electrician's going to cut that out and put a box in.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of maybe the number one question you always get at your mechanical orientation?
The number one question is probably, when am I going to be able to move in?
Yeah, I was going to guess
When's it going to be done? It looks great. When's it going to be done?
I think you can probably say in most stages of construction, that will be the question. And good thing is you're very close into the mechanical orientation. That's the time where we do give out that settlement date.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point to where, the house is framed up. The roof may not be on. There's some other outside stuff that we need to do yet. But for the most part, we're through any major activities that weather could delay us. So then we have a pretty good idea that we can give you a settlement date and be confident that that's going to be a solid date. So that's probably the number one question. But it really depends on the buyer, I think. A lot of people are just curious about the construction of the house because they may have not been in a home that has been at that point in construction before. So we get a lot of questions that, we just see as normal. We see it every day, but maybe to somebody that hasn't really experienced that, they're just, curious about how things are put together or why something is done the way it is. And again, it's a great chance to be in the house during that stage because you're never going to see it like that again. So
That's true.
Awesome.
How long would a mechanical orientation or walkthrough of the house typically take at that stage?
I'd say it averages about an hour.
Okay.
Depends on the size of the home. But I would say typically about 1 hour. So when you would get there, we would have, the idea would be we would have the electrical boxes in place. So you'd be very easily be able to see where your switches are going to be, where your outlets are going to be, any options that you added, you're going to be able to confirm that they're in the correct locations. And really, that's what we do. We kind of I like to start at the top floor, and we go through each room, and we'll show you the switch locations. We'll show you where the outlets are. We'll talk about the bath fans. And if there's nothing that you really want to add, then we can kind of move that pretty quickly along. If we get to a point to where you want to talk about maybe adding an option, then it could add a little bit of time. But usually, I don't want to keep giving props to the design studio, but like you guys do,
why not?
You guys you do a good job of setting up the buyer for what to expect. So it's actually a really fun appointment. It's pretty laid back. You don't necessarily have to prepare too much because you've already done that. You've already done the hard work. So it's really just going through and just verifying that everything is in its place. And as Stephanie mentioned, we do have a select list of options that we can add during that mechanical orientation. They're going to come with a larger investment than they would have initially, just because we have to process that. It's kind of like a pause in the process, and we have to go through and we have to make sure we document that and get it done. So we still have the capability to add, but it's not done frequently.
Mm-hmm.
What is the importance of completing the mechanical orientation like within the specified time frame? Because I know we are kind of working on a tight construction schedule so we can hit that settlement date.
Yeah, so roughly about a week for rough-ins. That's what we usually allot on our schedule. So that's to get the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing, all that stuff in place. And then right after that's done, we're getting inspection, insulation, and drywall within a matter of 2 days. So that's why that time frame is so small. It's really a lot of work getting done. And, we schedule stuff out months ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to move a schedule, it's we don't like to do it, again, because our trade partners have that schedule. They have that date locked in. Again, going back to part of our success with our trade partners, they want to rely on that schedule. Just like we want to be confident when we give out a settlement date, we can stick by it. It's the same way with the schedule task. So it's really like once you get the train moving on building a new home, it's really hard to slow it down, let alone stop it. So that's why sometimes we have to make quick decisions and schedule around a pretty tight time frame.
Awesome.
So can I ask myself a question?
Yeah.
Please.
So let's maybe talk about, Stephanie, you mentioned that it could be cold or it could be really hot.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some other things like you might encounter during the mechanical orientation that you see as like, oh my gosh, like what are they doing in my house? So I'll give you an example. Like, very good chance that the shingles are not on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
The trusses are going to be installed. The OSB is going to be on. There's going to be tar paper, but there may not be shingles. So maybe it rained the day before and there's like some wet subfloor. And you think about that. If rain gets through the roof because it's not shingled, it goes all the way down, ends in the basement. So maybe there's a puddle in the basement. That stuff occurs frequently on a jobs, right? We're building in the elements. All that material in the house is made to take a certain amount of moisture. It's going to dry out. For us, that's just everyday part of construction. But for somebody not experienced in it, you may think like, oh my gosh, like look at all this water in my house. So um, again, there's going to be trade partners working in the house when we're doing our mechanical orientation. As many as maybe, there could be 4 or 5 workers in there from different companies. So there may be some dirt on the floor or some debris from drilling holes, and there might be extension cords run and ladders set up. So it really is an active construction site. So it may be loud, right? We don't want to slow the workers down. Like we're in there trying to like cohabitate with them. Really, we're just trying to get through. We're trying to see what we want to look at and really not slow progress down. So it is interesting. It's really just like we're just for an hour in the middle of the day going into your active construction site, and there's going to be things probably that I would go into a job site and look at and think like, hey, that's just a normal, that's progress, right? Like, we're making progress. There's a lot of people working. There's material over here and stuff laying around, but really that's just how we get all that done in a short amount of time. So.
And what are those hours that we hold those mechanical orientations during the day?
Yeah, so ideally between 8 and 2 would be like the ideal time frame. That gives us enough time, to make sure that we can walk you through anything you need to, answer any questions. We don't put a timer on the mechanical orientation. I said it's about an hour, but we're there to help and answer any questions. So we just found between 8 and 2 is the ideal time frame, especially if you're getting close to winter time and you try to do that too late. Like you'd be surprised how quickly you run out of daylight, and then you really don't want to be in an under construction house when you're running out of daylight. So.
Yeah, right. I wanted to ask you, so I know you said like water from the roof and stuff, and then like water in the basement would be to like we backfill around after construction. So it's not uncommon to have water just like in the basement as the home is under construction, even when the roof shingles are on the house. That's kind of my understanding. Is that correct?
Yeah, that typically doesn't happen, but it's possible. So, I mean, there's a sump pit in the basement with a sump pump installed, but if we don't have electric to the home, then your sump pump's not going to do its job. So, yeah, great question, Katie. So, with our superior wall system, we have a foundation drain around the perimeter of our home. It's a 4-inch perforated drain. The idea is if water gets down beside your wall, instead of sitting outside your wall and putting that static pressure on the wall, it goes into the drain, ultimately into the sump pit, and is pumped out. But again, we have to have electric on for that system to work properly. So yeah, it does happen. But typically once we get electric installed and your sump pump is running like it should, then those issues will be resolved.
Yeah. One of those things that like you don't know until you're kind of told like that's actually normal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Any other questions you can think of?
I don't think so. I had one, but I don't think I think I lost it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mike. If anyone listening has any additional questions about their mechanical orientation or just in general about building an E.G. Stoltzfus home, we are looking to take listener questions. If you want to drop us a line on social media, a direct message, we may also drop a link in the show notes for this episode to a forum where you can leave us a listener question.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.